How easy is it to flip properties? Now, in theory, it's quite straightforward. You buy a stinky, horrible, smashed up property that's falling to bits. You renovate it, you sell it on, you move on. Now, I've bought over 40 properties and I've definitely experienced challenges, setbacks along the way on a lot of projects. So in theory, it's quite straightforward, but there's a lot of things to consider. One of the things to make damn sure that you get right is you don't pay too much for a property. Now, that might sound obvious, but just because a property's on the market and it looks like it needs a refurb, just because it's smashed up, falling to bits and stinky and horrible, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's worth paying anywhere close to the price that it's advertised for. Price is irrelevant for your purposes when it comes to flipping property. You need to be more concerned with value. So you work backwards. You calculate what's the end value of the property once it's refurbished. What's my refurbishment cost going to be? What's my buying and selling cost? All of my costs, not just the refurb cost, but the stamp duty, the building insurance, any finance costs that you might have on that project. And factoring those numbers in, the legal fees as well, the agent fees when it comes to sell the property, these things can really add up and they can hurt you if you've not taken them into account. So make sure you understand all those costs. And then you're thinking, what's my profit margin going to be? What do I need to make from this project to make all this time, energy, effort worthwhile when it comes to refurbishing the damn thing? And so you factor that in as well. Now, I look for around 20% minimum return on investment from total cost. So if, say, for example, you spend 300K all in, then the return on investment should be, in my view anyway, 20% minimum, so that's 60K back. Some might look for less or more than that, but that's what I look for. And that allows me to, if I need to, if I have to reduce the price to get that property sold at the end of the project, I don't usually have to do that. But if you, for example, you buy in a market that's good and then you're selling in a market that's not so good, of course, demand changes, prices can change. So when you bought well, and you've bought enough of a discount, you can do those things. You can reduce your price if you need to, and you can sell in a falling market. You're not just relying on property prices going up like some amateur developers can do. They're just relying on prices going up. Great when it's happening, not so great when it's not, because that's not a strategy. You need to be able to buy a property in any market. So when you're working backwards, you're calculating your figures correctly. That's going to set your project up for success because you can deal with any setbacks that way. If you're paying too much, everything else just becomes a lot harder. But aside from that, you've got to make sure you're managing your refurbishment costs so you're not overspending in the wrong areas. You're looking for ways to maximize value as much as possible, but without overspending. So I tend to avoid projects that are going to take absolutely ages and I'm doing multiple extensions. I've done them before, don't get me wrong. But generally speaking, because they take so much longer, they're not, in most cases anyway, because there can be exceptions to the rule, in most cases they're not necessarily going to be that much more rewarding than properties that can be done quickly, or at least a lot quicker. So yes, they're full renovations. You might be, putting in new kitchens and bathrooms and flooring and decoration and windows, heating, electrics are usually going to be upgraded, replastering, etc. So they're full refurbs, but not necessarily extensions. And they're a little bit quicker to get through and therefore get your money back and move on to the next deal. So I tend to look at those kind of projects. So when you're managing those costs, you're adding value through maybe adding a bedroom, but without doing an extension, from a reconfiguration where it's possible. It's not always possible, but where it is, you might be able to reconfigure things that way. You might be able to improve the appeal of a property by taking out a wall internally, just to make it more attractive, open plan kitchen, diner, etc. You might be relocating a kitchen from where it is to the dining room, making it in there, or putting it in there and then making the previous kitchen a utility room. If that works, sometimes that can massively improve the appeal, but without doing a whole bunch of additional building works that add a lot more cost. Sometimes you're looking at ways of doing that to maximize value but minimize costs. Just some things to consider. Aside from that, when you come to sell your property, make sure you're not overpricing it. You want to sell it quickly. Time is money when it comes to property flips. You want to be in and out of the deal, onto the next one as quickly as possible, because that allows you to make sure that you're keeping that money working hard for you, or as hard for you as possible, by constantly reinvesting it into the next deal and the next deal. And over the course of your journey, flipping property, you're going to make a lot more money compared to having properties stuck there, not selling because you're overpricing them when it comes to sell. So hopefully that's useful. If so, hit the like button, take the time to subscribe to the channel, and you'll see me again in the next one.